a player and a coach now that have two completely separate belief sets. And look, Stephanie White was angry when she made those comments. So you can bet one thing, I'm going to be watching and paying attention to Sophie Cunningham's minutes. If she all of a sudden has a reduction in minutes playing,
unparalleled crisis has officially engulfed the WNBA, and executives are desperately scrambling to suppress the leaked audio you are about to hear. The web always wins, though, and the tightly guarded secrets have finally spilled out. Despite relentless media spin projecting locker room harmony, the actual environment has spiraled into an absolute, unmitigated battlefield. Forget the petty on-court rivalries you have seen so far. They pale in comparison to the pure explosive pandemonium unfolding right now. We recently uncovered the shocking details of a catastrophic behind-the-scenes confrontation that has fractured the Indiana franchise to its core. At the heart of this storm is Sophie Cunningham, who boldly crossed lines nobody else dared to touch, pushing her head coach to the brink of insanity and causing a generational icon to reach her boiling point. Caitlin Clark's furious screams tore through the arena corridors, demanding to know why she was constantly targeted and why Cunningham was now in the crosshairs. This situation escalated so rapidly that even the administration at the White House felt compelled to intervene, transforming a simple internal dispute into a staggering, undeniable nationwide spectacle. Settle in, because Stephanie White just triggered the most devastating blunder in women's basketball history. To comprehend how this toxic warfare started, we need to examine the catalyst. Cunningham is legendary for her unapologetic toughness, refusing to yield to opponents or the league's underlying political games. While seasoned athletes whined about travel accommodations on various shows, she seized the narrative to champion the protection of female athletics, delivering a stark, controversial reality check that her peers were too frightened to voice. She stood firmly resolute, demanding fundamental integrity and honor for the pioneers of the sport.
Sophie Cunningham says, the article says, you say she's a MAGA bark. As some corners of the internet have taken to calling her. Projection, she says, because of what she looks like and where she's from. She'll weigh in on how to, quote, protect women's sports, she says, because she's in that world and feels qualified to speak to that world. Quote, I got a lot of negative feedback about me hating trans, and I'm like, I never once said that, she says. I think that I'm here to extend love, but I also think with that love is truth, being honest. And I want to protect young girls in the locker room or young girls in sport who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Now, prior to yesterday's game, the Indiana Fever media, they flooded Sophie Cunningham. Apologize, Sophie, apologize! How dare you! And then Sophie Cunningham says,
in that story with ESPN, you talked about wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense. And I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really...
The landscape erupted instantly, with countless supporters rallying behind her fearless refusal to accept the standard sanitized corporate messaging. However, while the public celebrated her audacity, the atmosphere inside the Indiana executive suites turned aggressively dark and vindictive. Management strictly desired players who adhered to their carefully crafted public relations scripts, leading the head coach to conclude that Cunningham had to be forcibly silenced as a stern warning to others. Rather than supporting her athlete and maintaining squad unity, Stephanie White crumbled beneath the intense scrutiny, executing the ultimate breach of trust. Insider leaks confirm that she did not merely disagree with her guard. She actively initiated aggressive retaliatory punishments against her.
I agree, and so I stand on what I said, and I always believe that.
Yeah, do you see your advocacy on that, like, taking any form going forward?
You know, I don't know. I'm not a very political person, but I do have beliefs. I have morals, and I'll always stand on those and be true to who I am. And I think people are going to take it how they want to take it, but I've never even really said anything about that. And so when it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. I think that's why you have Title IX. That's why you have some of the greats in women's sports. If Title IX and women's sports weren't protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport. And so I think in the future, it's just really important to protect.
Do you think, I guess, along the line like that, it goes against perhaps, some people might say, hey, for the trans community, this could be something that could come back on us or be targeted against us. Like, how do you, I guess, view that sort of critique?
You know, like I said, I extend love, and I don't dislike anyone.
Behind locked doors, completely baseless accusations were hurled at the veteran guard, accompanied by threats of lengthy suspensions. the sudden revocation of her starting role, and a permanent exile from the strategic playbook. This represented a ruthless, calculated campaign of sabotage, aimed at intimidating every other player on the roster. The underlying threat was clear: step out of bounds with your personal beliefs, and your professional trajectory will be annihilated. The head coach wrongly assumed she could execute this brutal discipline without detection, forcing her entire squad to comply like mindless subordinates. Unfortunately for her, she completely ignored the fact that the entire nation was already scrutinizing their every move, and she drastically misjudged the fierce loyalty of the sport's biggest phenomenon, Caitlin Clark.
When it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. I think that's why you have Title IX. That's why you have some of the greats in women's sports. If Title IX and women's sports weren't protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport. And so...
Damn. Sophie, I said what I said. Whoa. you know they were hoping that Sophie Cunningham would apologize, would walk back all of her words that came out in that article. You were hoping. Sophie Cunningham played 7 minutes in the first half after doubling down on what she said. Folks, I don't remember Sophie Cunningham playing 7 minutes in the first half all season long in the game that she played it. But then after that, you have the Indiana Fever putting out a statement. Our players are thoughtful adults with their own perspectives and voices, and those views are their own. We are committed to welcoming fans from every background and treating everyone with respect. And that's what...
The vindictive sanctions could be officially implemented. A genuinely unimaginable development occurred, elevating the dispute to an entirely new echelon. A staggering wave of cultural and political validation swept across the country when the nation's highest office suddenly entered the conversation to back the controversial statements. By effectively endorsing the targeted player, the executive branch utterly dismantled the carefully constructed smear campaign that management was desperately attempting to orchestrate. Picture being a leader trying to unjustly sideline your own team member for voicing her convictions, only to discover that the presidential administration and the American public have fiercely rallied to her defense. White was unequivocally caught red-handed, firmly planted on the losing side of this historic cultural...
I said what I said, Cunningham told reporters. But rather than me just saying that, let's hear from Sophie Cunningham herself. Listen to what she had to say.
Talked about wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense. And I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children. And that's little girls who are also involved in that category. And so I stand on what I said, and I always believe that.
I stand with Sophie Cunningham. I stand with Riley Gaines. I stand with them both. I have 2 daughters. They don't participate in sports, but if they did, that would be my position. And I think it's important to emphasize what Sophie Cunningham said a bit further. She said, I think I'll always believe that. I think it's really important to protect children and that little girls who are also involved in that category. So I stand on what I said, and I will always believe that. She claims she's not a political person, but she does have morals and beliefs, and she will always stay true to them. When asked if her stance could negatively impact the trans community, Cunningham said she's not speaking out of hate. She doesn't dislike anyone. She says, quote, I think there is room for absolutely everyone here, and I think there's room to love everyone. I truly think when you get people in the same room and you have conversations, you actually have a lot in common with a lot of people. I'm there to love, but I'm also there to love biological women. And I think that there are rights that need to be protected. And like I said, I'm going to stand true to that. I'll never falter in my beliefs in that, but I have never once said I hated the trans community. Like I said, I think there's space for everybody.
The organization's communications team plunged into sheer panic, hastily drafting a chaotic, desperate retraction to mitigate the fallout, yet the destruction was irreversible. All coaching authority instantly vanished, team trust completely evaporated, and in that precise window of instability, Clark finally unleashed her pent-up fury. The rookie sensation had silently endured a relentless barrage of mistreatment all year long, absorbing brutal physical fouls, weathering deeply resentful media comments from envious veterans, and navigating a staff that actively marginalized her on the offensive end. However, watching her mentor attempt to systematically ruin a teammate for merely speaking her truth became the ultimate breaking point that pushed her over the edge.
Huh.
Sneakers on today. Before we start with questions, I just want to address, what's going on with AT. I think first and foremost, it's to protect our players. We've got to continue to support our players in our league. We get to play a basketball game. And AT was exactly right. Like, we get to play a basketball game. And yes, that's going to come with criticism. Yes, that's going to come with fans and the love-hate relationship that they have with players and teams. That is going to come. But it's not hard to not be a jerk. And if you are one of these people that are online doing this, do not call yourself a WNBA fan. Our league is about inclusiveness. Our league is about inclusiveness. Do not call yourself a WNBA fan. Our league is about inclusiveness. Our league is about competition.
Our league is about competition.
Our league is about elevating.
Our league is about elevating.
Elevating women.
Elevating women.
Elevating marginalized communities.
Elevating marginalized communities.
Including and being inclusive of all different walks of life.
Being inclusive of all different walks of life.
That is what our league has always been about from day one. That is what our league will continue to be about. And we will continue to compete at a high level, hold ourselves to a higher standard, continue to be on the forefront of social norms, and we will continue to support one another collectively as a league. Players, coaches, staff, support staff, everyone. We're about elevating. We are not about demeaning, demanding. We are not about continuing this narrative. And it's just...
Clandestine recording from the dressing room remains incredibly haunting, as the rookie completely obliterated her superior's authority. Onlookers described how she aggressively shoved her locker shut and went utterly ballistic, her voice rattling the walls as she challenged the incessant efforts to suppress her own potential before shifting focus to the attack on her teammate. Declaring an immediate end to the psychological warfare, she vividly exposed the deep-seated jealousy and internal sabotage that had plagued the organization for months. By establishing an impenetrable bond with the embattled veteran, she orchestrated an unprecedented rebellion against the coaching staff. The message to the front office was unmistakable. Attempting to penalize one means you must simultaneously suspend the primary financial engine of the entire association. This staggering demonstration of dominant leadership completely immobilized the team's brass and left the league commissioner entirely paralyzed.
Was fired for sexual harassment. Brianna Turner made us all aware of that earlier this morning, late last night. Indiana Fever put out a statement about that. Quote, protecting our players and employees and maintaining a respectful, professional workplace is our top priority. Our policy is to take concerns seriously, investigate thoroughly, and act promptly when appropriate to protect the people in our organization and ensure everyone is treated with professionalism and respect. Fostering trust and safety in that process means we do not comment on personnel matters involving former employees. Now, I'm not sure what people were expecting the Indiana Fever to say. I guess they wanted names. They wanted allegations. Now, this is the thing. If we get a name on who allegedly was getting harassed, well, then the person who was doing the harassing now will feel inclined to speak up and give their side of the story. And the truth lies somewhere in the middle. There's one side, there's another side, and then there's the truth. So what Brianna Turner has done, she's opened up a whole can of worms. Because I'm seeing people speculate, oh, it was this person, oh, it was that person. Well, this person or that person comes forward and says, I was the one that got da-da-da-da-da, and these were and this is what happened to me, and da-da-da-da-da. Well, that person that did it will probably have to feel emboldened to protect their name. Interesting. The Indiana Fever responded quite quickly to the Sophie They responded within 24 hours to the Sophie Cunningham statement, and they responded within 12 hours to the Brianna Turner statement.
Now, the Indiana organization resembles an active combat zone rather than a professional sports franchise, and the rookie phenom is commanding the front lines. With federal intervention, a steadfast veteran refusing to back down, and a superstar leading an open revolt against management, time is running out to find a solution. The pressing issue now rests squarely on the association's shoulders. Will the ownership group finally make the necessary move and terminate their head coach to salvage the organization's future, or will this internal conflict completely dismantle their championship aspirations right on the eve of the postseason? I am eager to hear your genuine, unfiltered perspectives on this massive controversy, so flood the comment section below with your thoughts. If you support this powerful player alliance, crush the like button, subscribe for more explosive inside scoops, and I will catch you in the next breakdown.